Lobbyists have rigged the tax code with loopholes that let some corporations pay nothing while others pay full freight. They've riddled it with giveaways that the super rich don't need while denying a break to middle-class families who do. We need a tax code that truly helps working Americans trying to get a leg up in the new economy, and we can achieve that together.
You know, he went on to talk about the minimum wage. First of all, those loopholes that are rigged and all that kind of stuff, he takes advantage of them. You ever see what tax rate he winds up paying? Do you look at his tax returns every year? There was a year, at least one, where he paid less of a rate than his secretary. Remember that mantra that was paraded around over and over and over again? These loopholes, these rigged loopholes and gimmicks, he takes advantage of them. One year in particular, I remember when I was still at WOR, he gifted his daughters, he and his wife, each gifted each daughter the maximum amount, so they wouldn't have to report it as income, and they were allowed to do it. That's a gimmick. That's a loophole. That's for the wealthy who could afford it. He did it. I mean, come on, stop being a hypocrite. Tell me you don't take any tax deductions, which are loopholes. Deductions are loopholes. Same thing. If you have a yacht, you know, then you can take the yacht deduction, which was just reinforced, by the way. If you don't, you can't. So if you can't do it, and you want to just make it point out that only rich people who have yachts, then it becomes an evil loophole. But if you deduct your mortgage interest and you gift your daughters, then it's just a deduction. Same thing. You know, please, don't even get me started. Please don't get me started. It's just hypocrisy 101. Blatant hypocrisy. Make villains, it's populist stuff. It said, you know, make villains out of the rich, corporations, this, that. With the day that President Obama and all the hypocritical Democrats say, I don't take any deductions. I pay 25, whatever, 28%, 29%, 39%. I don't take deductions. I'll say, okay. Now you could talk about, call them loopholes. All right, joining us now, ladies and gentlemen, Ken Cuccinelli, president of the Senate Conservatives Fund and former Virginia Attorney General. Hello, sir.
How are you?
I'm doing well, Ken. Good to talk to you again. All right, let's talk about the State of the Union. I mean, I don't know where to start. In your capacity as the with the Conservative Fund, what struck you as probably the most egregious of everything, I guess?
Well, there were so many just blatant lies. I mean, just ignoring reality. But what was most astonishing to me was this. He was declaring victory over the economy. I rescued this foundering ship, and now Americans are better off. Really? What Americans are you hanging around with? The average American has seen their wages stagnate for years and years and years, and as this president, often illegally, continues to suffocate our economy, it's no wonder. The next most egregious was taking credit for greater energy production. He was celebrating America being #1 in oil and gas, and that was despite all his best efforts. An easy way for your viewers to understand the egregiousness of that is that they have more or less cut off new drilling and on federal lands. All of the massive improvement in our energy situation has come on private land. The federal government stopped us where they could on their own property. And one of the reasons Americans, one of the economic pluses for Americans right now is, of course, the dropping of gas prices to around or below $2 a gallon.
Right, and he had nothing to do with that.
Frankly, you and I both know that drives him crazy. So he had to, no pun intended, so he had to wrap it up with, and our cafe regulations, you know, they're a big deal. It also speaks to a complete lack of knowledge of economics. You know, the cafe standards, if they mattered, would drive up the cost of cars, of course, but would use less fuel. That wouldn't drive down the price necessarily like the increase in supply. But the great thing about the increase in our production is we got new jobs going despite the president.
Yeah. Listen, Ken, we had the Skype trouble at the beginning. I wish we had more time. We'll have you back next week because I'd love to talk more about everything with you. And, of course, the president, before he became president, said he'd like to see $7, $8 a gallon gas, but not too quickly. We all remember that. Ken Cuccinelli, thank you very much.
All right, folks. Thankfully.
Yes, thank you. Thanks, Ken. Sorry. After the break, folks, we'll be back with Jesse Lee Peterson. But first, let's take a look back with this hour's American Moment.
The 1954 U.S. Supreme Court's decision, Brown versus the Board of Education, declared all laws establishing segregated schools to be unconstitutional. As with the majority of southern cities, Little Rock, Arkansas's Board of Education agreed to comply with the court's ruling. However, Arkansas's Governor Orville Faubus had other ideas.
Units of the National Guard have been and are now being mobilized with the mission to maintain or restore the peace and good order of this community.
President Eisenhower was so disturbed by the governor's decision to completely ignore federal law, he cut short his vacation and returned to the White House to address the nation.
The President's responsibility is inescapable. In accordance with that responsibility, I have today issued an executive order directing the use of troops under federal authority to aid in the execution of federal law at Little Rock, Arkansas.
At the center of the controversy were 9 black students selected by the Little Rock School Board to attend the then all-white Central High School. One of the students, Elizabeth Eckford, arrived at the school separately and found herself confronting an angry crowd of students and bystanders. Suddenly, out of that crowd, as seen here, an older white woman came to her rescue and guided her safely to a bus. Even after the 9 students were admitted to Central High, the year that followed found them being subjected to taunts and abuses, both verbal and physical, by student and parent alike.
Well, I think like if a Spanish or a Chinese person came here, it wouldn't be hard to get along with them. It's just that the Negroes are what you might say more different to us than a Spanish person might be.
However, with the admittance of those brave students on the 25th day of September 1957, the precedent had been set, and soon afterward, all of Little Rock schools voluntarily complied with the court's rulings, and planned school segregation became part of a troubled past. For Newsmax TV, I'm Bill Curtis.